I want to welcome everybody to the second presentation. Let's open with a word of prayer. Holy God, we thank you that you can be with us. As we heard earlier, may each of us who are here in person, and even those who are joining online, understand the purpose of coming together, that we may develop our relationships one with another, and that you might teach us. In Jesus' name, Amen. Just do a quick recap of our study yesterday. Spoke about the way this current message, the Sunday Law message, is being disseminated to the movement. And the pretext or the context that I gave was Hebrews chapter 8. And I referenced a study. This was the fourth presentation at the recent Slovakian camp meeting. Just to clarify, that was the weekend camp meeting before the one that most of you are familiar with. We spoke about the Sunday Law studies and the 5 speakers. And I mentioned, but I didn't develop the thought, that what binds these 5 studies together is that they're all connected to the 2024 election. There are 4 dates that these speakers talk about. July, November, December 24 and January 25. And I posed a question to the group here. Can anybody remember what the question was? Annabelle? One moment. Thank you. One moment.
Is it salvational if you get it wrong?
Thank you. Jonathan, how would you describe the question? Same way or?
Same way.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Are you teaching error? Are you teaching error if you don't understand correctly? The date, if you get the date wrong. Are you teaching error if you get the date wrong?
Thank you. Anyone else? So these 5 speakers are all handling these 4 dates in different ways. They all understand them as significant. Some not as significant as other dates. And I posed the question, is it salvational for you to understand or to know the correct date for the Sunday law? We could say the correct date or the correct event. So you'll all appreciate that built into that question are several assumptions. That these are the only 4 events to consider. That there aren't any other ideas or studies. That somewhere in the midst of these 5 speakers, we have the truth. And someone isn't going to stand up tomorrow with a completely different model. I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but the way the question was framed doesn't allow for that. So I want us all to be clear on that point. That we're assuming that at least one of these speakers is correct. And the event that they're marking is right. Which would suggest that the other events are incorrect. Meaning the other speakers are wrong. So knowing those assumptions, the question is, will it affect your salvation if you pick the wrong event? We're not discussing the salvation of the speakers. Hope that makes sense of why we wouldn't do that. It's not their salvation you need to worry about, it's your own. And your duty is simply to investigate all of these studies, collate the information and come to a conclusion for yourself about what the correct answer is. Does anybody have any questions or comments based upon what I've just said? Okay, if not, I'll just move on a little bit. So I'll say some people said yes, it is salvational. And others said it's not salvational because they recall hearing from several of the speakers and we have 4 names on the board that the people here who spoke were sure that they'd heard these four speakers say the following: that when these speakers individually look at the events of the 2024 election, they see those events as a progression or as a collective event. And the term that was used yesterday was bookending, which means everything's contained in this block of time. And that's what the graphic on the board shows, this alpha and omega with a little timeline there. And the people who proposed this idea here in our group, based upon what they'd heard speakers say, said, for example, if one of the speakers has a particular date, which is alpha here on the board as their beginning, and a particular date, omega, as the end, then they're encapsulating that whole time period. So therefore it wouldn't be salvational. And that's about as far as we got. Does anybody have any questions or comments? So I want us to remember this statement here. The 2024 US election. So the 2024 election seems to be the event, if I say in the singular, that ties the 5 studies together. So I want to get your thoughts on why have all of them independently come to the conclusion that that US election was the Sunday law waymark. When I say election, I'm using that as a collective idea that has July, November, December, and January. And all of those collectively would be this singular term called the election. That's how I'm using it. Does that make sense to everybody, or is someone got a question. Okay, so if we all agree with that, why do you think they've all gravitated to this? So there are two parts to my question. What would be your question? This is what they've done. You know that's what they're doing. What would you be asking yourself? Murray?
What what did they what did they see at each of these dates that showed them that it was the Sunday law?
So if we can put them all together as a singular event, what could you rephrase your question that with that idea?
What is happening that indicates the Sunday law?
Okay, so I'm going to rephrase what you've said, I think, and if tell me if you disagree, then I'll redo it. Why an election? Is that kind of what you've said?
Yeah.
Because it could be anything. In fact, if we use the term that we still continue to use, which is what?
Sunday law.
Good. If we use the term Sunday law, what would the marker be for that idea?
A law.
Yeah. So in the past we'd be looking for a law in some shape or form. Did you want to say something, Gloria? Okay. So depending on how each of you visualized those models of the past, there would be some religious influence going on in society that somehow or another influenced the government to promote some religious idea. We were not clear what the impetus or the premise for that push would be. So perhaps it might be climate change. Perhaps there was an economic collapse. Perhaps there was a plague. We've had all three things. So depending on where your imagination or your thoughts might take you, or maybe your understanding of prophecy, there would be a catalyst that would inspire some element in the United States to now have the power, the legitimacy to influence the government. to implement a law. So with we understand about the law model. It's what Adventism teaches. Still, it's what Ellen White um, instructed us to expect. And now we've moved away from that. We have these leading speakers say it's nothing to do with any law. It's actually an election. So, that to me seems like a big change. And if you were Murray, you'd say, why? How did they get from implementing a law to something completely different, which was an election? Another question? Number one is why an election? And they said, because it is. And you're all very logical people. So your follow-up question would be, with Gloria first and then Jonathan, if that's okay.
So when you gave presentations about voting, and you had said that voting was our religious duty, were you referring that whichever we vote, either for Trump or Kamala Harris, was that a test for us?
So these 5 speakers are standing in front of you, and this is your opportunity to ask them anything you want. I'm not one of them. So the first question you asked is, why did you change from law to election? I could be wrong, but I would suggest that'd be your first question. Or maybe your second one. Give me your input. After they've said why an election, maybe they would say, Parminder said it was our religious duty and that's why I've changed. So they've given a reason why it's an election. What's the next question?
Just to comment on that, so Elder Tess presented that the Eden to Eden model started with an election, so the end will finish with an election.
So let me try and draw what you've just said. Eden to Eden. And you're saying at the beginning there was an election?
Yes. At the Garden of Eden.
I must have missed that one. And that means there'll be an election at the end.
Yes.
And that's the answer that that speaker is going to give you for number one. And you're going to ask them, there were more things than elections going on in Eden. Why that one? Why pick elections? So, what else goes on in Eden is spiritualism. And therefore, at the end, it will be spiritualism as well. And that's what the issue will be.
So my question is, by spiritualism, do you mean putting your thoughts before what has been taught in the movement? What is your definition?
Back in the Garden of Eden, those two humans got to the place where they thought they could be gods. And it was their direct fight with God, however you'd want to describe it. That is what the great test will be at the end of the world. Nothing to do with the elections. How do you know it's elections? So there was a diet issue. We could go on. Why elections? We don't have to answer that. I'm not. Maybe Gloria or someone else can tell me. What election is there? Back. Oh, before we do that, Jonathan, you're going to answer what the second question is? Is that what you had your hand up for? You won't forget, or you want to do it now? Okay, we'll go. So, I don't know what the election that we're referring to here is.
I would say maybe the election would be about who rules. So, like who rules in the Garden of Eden at the time, and whose laws they choose to obey or abide by.
Who are the two parties?
The two parties would be God's side and the devil's side, and the enemy's side.
So they're the two parties. And you're saying that Adam and Eve vote.
Yes, I would say by way of obedience or disobedience.
Anybody else? If you or any more?
No, that's it.
Were you going to say something, Shemaine? So we're going to define the fall of humanity as an election. I presume two people have just said yes. 3 people, I'm guessing. So you read the story in the book of Genesis. Don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but by a leap of faith, you're going to turn that into an election. So I like that. You just like voila. And then that proves that we're going to have an election as the great test at the end of the world. That's it? Good enough for everybody? Except me? Is it just me that seems that sounds a bit shaky? Couple of us. Jonathan, question number 2.
Why 2024?
I'll rephrase it, but tell me if you don't like it. Why this one? So the question 1 was why an election? And they said because of Eden to Eden. Then the second question is, sounds reasonable. How do you know it's this election? Not another one. Debbie, did you have a question? You had your hand up? Or you were just voting with me? Okay, so is everybody happy with why it's an election? Eden to Eden, that's it? So we've had 2 answers, both from Gloria. So we've got to have some other people give some input. Gave 2 answers. Tess said, Parminder said. I said it's your religious duty. And Tess said it's Eden to Eden. That's why. Debbie?
No, I was just going to add in on the election.
She can't. It just got to be.
I was just going to add in on the election at the beginning, election at the end. As David said, the study that Elder Tess had done, to my understanding, included voting for God was shown through obedience. So what you said is the fall of humanity became a choice between God or the enemy of God.
Everything that you've said, I don't know if you're expressing your belief or Tess's perspective, the former or latter.
My belief of Elder
So the
Tess's
former, your belief.
perspective. No, I'm not agreeing necessarily.
So you don't agree? My question is, the fall of humanity, do you think it's reasonable to describe that as an election? You said it isn't for you?
the reasoning isn't enough?
So I just take it as a no.
I'll say it as a no.
Any yeses? I'm not trying to destroy a study or anything. I'm just asking, is that it? Murray?
If you say that an election is a choice, then you can see a choice at the beginning of who you want to follow. And I would say the great test at the end is also who you want to follow. The great controversy.
So, you think it's reasonable? It's sufficient for you to do election to election. I would remind you, if Elder Tess was here, she'd just and we'll say, of course. Because she speak as one with authority. And because she's not here, and I am, and I'm saying, is that it? You're all saying, I feel a bit silly now. Okay, Jonathan and at the back there. Yes, sorry.
If we're using the Eden model, I would have the same question as to why election as we did with our 5 presenters. Because as you illustrated on the board, there are multiple issues. And we have to have a reason why we choose one over the other ones.
At the back. And Gloria, you had your hand up?
I was trying to understand what the term election actually means.
The word.
And from online, I'm getting it's a formal and organized choice by vote of a person for a political office or other position. So if we consider for Adam and Eve, if we were to put that as an election, then we'll have to define the parameters and everything involved. And the office that the person who's going to win that election is going to get, and everything that comes with that office.
Okay, so let's just have a quick exploration of that. Election. So we're going to look at the word election and try to understand what it means. We won't go to the Latin or anything or the Greek. So if you simplify what you said, election is what?
Um, it, um, it's an exercise that is embarked upon.
Let's try keep it simple. I'm already...
There is an office that is being fought for. So people choose. There's a choice. So there's a choice that has to be made, and the parties involved have to make a choice to determine the office that is being fought for.
She wants me to simplify that. Okay. I'll try to simplify if I can. So let's look at election in two models. When you think of election, you think, what's the framework of elections? What's it to do with? More than parties. Politics. Okay, so when you have a political election, it has to have certain elements to it. This one here at the end, the Omega election, they're all saying it's the 2024 one. So, I know I'm jumping back and forth. So, politics, and I'll just call it general. Because an election can happen in many contexts. So one specific one is politics, but you can be in anything. So if you're a parent, you have a favourite child, which is very bad. That would be an election, I believe. Children have a favourite parent, it would be an election. Two parties, and you're going to choose one of them over the other one. So that would be by definition an election, I think. Unless someone disagrees. But that's definitely not politics. So if we're okay with that, as Douglas said, let's look at the word. I've split it into two parts. The Omega election, which one is that? Number one or number two? Everybody agrees number one? This was a political election. We'll jump ahead a bit because we haven't looked at the properties of those types of elections to be able to know the answer of what I'm going to ask you now. So if this was number one, politics, let's not do a beginning to end. Just go back to the story. And the story is given here. What was this election? The alpha election. Number 1 or number 2? Put your hands up for number 1. Put your hands up for number 2. So, so most people are saying it's number 2. So you already have a problem. So let's go back and flesh out these a little bit more to be sure. Number 1, politics. If you're going to have a political election, name me a couple of things that have to be in place that you need for it to work. Jonathan.
I would think that you would have to have at least 2 different ideologies.
I'm not going to put that in because you'll always have to have 2. You'd put the same for number 2. Which parent do you like? Because they both have different ideologies.
What's the difference between general and political? I didn't catch.
What's the difference between number 1 and number 2? I'm hoping that collectively you can tell me. A political election is specifically to do with governments. General one is families. For instance, it could be anything. Between your friends. The whole concept of having 2 choices and choosing 2 things and choosing one of them, I think is by definition an election. You're looking for a partner. You go on to .com. And you look at the pictures and you vote for which one you like. I think we all know intuitively that's not politics. So I'm not going to define politics or general. I wanted to see if we can just tease out a couple of attributes that would be required. Does that help, Jonathan? No. Okay, I'll do one then, or Murray will do one for us. If you're going to have a political election, what do you need?
You need a government, and you choose the form of the government or type of government or who will govern.
Okay, I like that answer. Maka?
For political, you would need a law.
Okay, you need a law. So, I like that answer too. I'm going to put 2 things down. Tell me if they're either just rephrasing of what you've said or if they make sense. Needs to be organized. Someone might call it, which is what I thought someone was going to say, fair, and everybody knows that one. fair and free, and connected to if it's organised and fair and free, etc. I'm not going to write this down, I'll write something else down, but you can't spring it on people, like surprise. You need to, so I'm going to put you need to know the date ahead of time. Has to have certain properties. So you can't just wake up one day and they say, it's election day today. And you'll say, no one told me. What are the terms and conditions? What's going on? So there are various elements of politics. I won't put anything for general. So if that were okay, does the Omega election fit the criteria for politics? Did everybody know the date ahead of time? Was it organised? Everybody knew what their choices were. I'm not going to go on the free and fair because we might not agree on that. So go to the beginning, the alpha election. Did Eve wake up and say, it's the election day today, I'm going to choose who I'm going to serve? No. Was there some kind of organisation? No. Does she know she's even voting? She doesn't even know she's voting. So it's not fair and free. It just doesn't have the characteristics of a political election as we would expect. We might agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. Who's Eve voting for? Who's the two parties? Not a trick question. God? Satan? Who's Adam voting for? His options. Murray?
There's three parties. There's God and Satan and Eve. I guess he's also could be voting for Eve.
Anyone else? So Nora said Satan through Eve. So does Adam say, I think I'm going to vote for that really bad party? If you read the story, you know the answer is no. So it's not vote. Satan isn't on the ticket for him. It's Eve. The more you dig, this nice story of election to election breaks down quite quickly. And we haven't even begun to try, really. So the point of all of that is not a criticism or Elder Tess has taught. It's asking those 5 speakers why an election. To be fair on them, they didn't give this answer. Of course, we've made it up. But hopefully, you'll think now. I hope it's a bit stronger than what we've discussed. So they have to have some reason. And I can assure you it's not going to be that straightforward. So, once you've done that, why this one? So, anybody can comment or ask a question or speak on this latest point I'm bringing up, or they can go back. I don't mind. Anybody? That means everybody's happy. Okay. Then my question is, why this one? Kathy? Yeah? Right for the mic.
So the Eden to Eden line, would that be considered panoramic or progressive?
I'm not sure what your question is. Maybe you could reframe it.
Well, I recall that numerous times when we look at alpha and omega, they may be similar but not exactly the same. And so I was wondering if election is generic enough, or does this make it a progressive line because it's specific?
So, I'm not sure about the 2 options were progressive and
Panoramic.
I'm not sure about the framework of panoramic or progression. But your question as to, or the point that you make, that the end doesn't have to look exactly the same as the beginning. If it doesn't, you need a bit more evidence, don't you? To be able to show that to be sure that you're not making a mistake. So I'm not saying that this is wrong to do election to election that are very different. I'm not saying it's wrong to turn the fall of humanity into an election. Because it has the properties of number 2. But to me it doesn't seem enough. You'd have to have secondary or tertiary models. To be sure that the end time issue is, in fact, an election.
So would that fit in with, you gave, like we use line upon line, but you said with caution, so this would be one of those times where you need to be cautious. Oh, I'm sorry. So we were, you talked about us using line upon line, that's part of our methodology. But to use it with caution.
I said that. We haven't done line upon line. So if someone were to give another line, we would discuss that. All I'm saying is up to this point, I think we'd need better arguments than what's shown here, the Eden to Eden line. I think that's all I've said up to this point. We need further modelling, whatever that was, to be able to be sure that it's an election at the end of the world.
So it takes me back to my original question. Is that line progression or panoramic?
I think it's neither. I think it's alpha and omega, which is a slightly different concept. Maybe I've confused people when I've used the term panoramic. In the past, we might have used the term fractal. Which is a similar concept, if I can say it that way. I hope that helped or made it worse. Panoramic just means looking at something at a large scale. We could have done some other artwork like this and gone from election to election. And this could have been, I don't know, I'll say at the flood to the end. And the one that we had above was Eden to the end. So this would be a panoramic story, and this would be a smaller version of the same thing. And what you end up doing with this kind of picture is, in essence, line upon line. And what I caution people is when they normally do this type of model, the flood and Eden, let's just call that B and A. B and A have very similar properties, or perhaps identical properties. And what you have to be careful is at the end, you don't think that it's the same thing. And that caution was different to what this discussion that we're having. Go ahead.
Okay, I think I understand where my wrong thinking was, that the election of 2024 is not the end. Your examples of panoramic are begin, end. So we're using begin, Eden, and going to 2024. That's not an end.
I fear I've made things worse. Because this is the election. This is election 2024. There was some election at this random point. I've just said it's the flood. And that's also pointing to 2024 election. So it sounds like I confused you even more. Anybody over here got any questions or thoughts? My question still holds, is why this one? Murray, then Gloria?
So I was just wondering about your caution. Is your caution saying that if you look at A, Eden to end, the end would look different than if you were looking at flood to end?
I think I should just erase what's on the board. Kathy spoke about panoramic and progression, and then one of us spoke about line upon line. And I was trying to show through this graphic that this idea that the question about is it or is it not panoramic was not relevant to the subject. And this is not progression, because we're not progressing anywhere. We didn't go on a journey. So progression would be something that had intermediary events that show you how you get from alpha to omega. And this model that Gloria gave us, beginning to end, is not the same thing as progression. Progression says you start somewhere. We would say at the time of the end. At the time of the end, not really. The King of the North is a baby. And the progression is the growing up of the King of the North until they do something big. That's progression. This concept was the beginning is the same as the end. And all panoramic is just another way of expressing the concept of fractals. So that's all I was trying to show here. I wasn't trying to show anything more than that. That panoramic is, I guess, a red herring, if that makes, I don't know how that translates, is a confusing concept. It's not no, panoramic is not applicable to this story, and this is not line upon line or progression. Sorry, if I'm confused. And we didn't speak about line upon line because we only had one line. And I said that line looks pretty weak to me. So you need something to buttress it or support it. Whether that's another line or another concept, I don't know. Hopefully that clears up a little bit, maybe. Okay, why this election? Why not another one? What's special about this one? Nobody knows? Nobody has an opinion? So before we go to Debbie, put your hands up if you're sure it's this election. If I'd asked you yesterday, you would have put your hand up. Now you don't know. Put your hands up if you're not sure if it's this election. So it could be another one. If you put your hand up that you're not sure, could we have missed it 4 years ago? Or is it one of the future ones coming? Okay, so some people said they don't know if it's the 2024 election. So if you're not sure it's that one, it could be another one. Put your hands up if you think it could have been the 16 or the 20 elections. 2016, 2020. And we just missed them. Anybody want to go for that one? Okay, so no one voted for those. So we haven't missed them. Nobody believes we've missed the election. So it's either the 2024 or one of the future ones. So does anybody think it could be the 2032 elections? Is that right, 32? Yeah, the 2032 elections. Anybody believe it could be the 2032 elections? Too far away? 8 years is too far. 2028 elections, the next one. We don't like participating, or we've got no idea what we're doing? I'm asking the people who aren't sure. Some people behind you said they don't even know if it's 2024. So I was saying, well, what's your options? Okay, so I'll just take Debbie's question. I might not answer it depending on what it is, or comment. It might be a comment, so you comment.
I was just going to comment to your question. The work has been completed. polarization of both sides has gelled.
What's the last word you said?
Gelled.
The work has been completed. The work has been completed on both sides. And something had gelled.
Polarization is in place. And things have gelled.
What does it mean things have gelled?
Settled in.
Okay, so the two parties have settled into their ideologies or whatever their beliefs. That's why you think it's this election just gone.
Yes.
Okay, Jonathan?
You asked if about the elections, which one we thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have the question, what is the Sunday law and why this election? If I believe 2024 is the year but can't defend it, could I raise my hand saying 2024 is the election?
I got lost on the logic a little bit. Can you just do it again?
So I believe 2024 is the year, but I can't explain why.
Okay, I thought that's what you said. I'm just going to ask, well, why do you believe it?
Exactly.
You must have a reason. It doesn't matter if it's a bad one or a weak one. You must have some reason, I'm pretty sure.
Probably lots of reasons.
Just give us one. Your best one.
We have 5 people presenting that the Sunday law happened either in 2024 or 2025.
So there are teachers in the movement who look around the world and say, this is it. And because there's enough of them, it must be so.
It suggests that 2024 is significant.
Why is 2024 significant?
I didn't say it was a good reason. Because the presentations on the Sunday law are focusing on this year as being the year that it was fulfilled. Because the presenters are telling us that they're focusing on the year of 2024 around their studies.
Okay, so we'll close now. I don't want to go over time. If you try to remember where we are, remember your thoughts. The 2 questions. Why is it become an election? An answer, and after that had been answered, why this one? Let's pray. Holy God, we thank you that we might have a clearer understanding of what it is we're supposed to understand and believe. We ask for a blessing and clarity of thought and mind, so that we might find an answer for these important questions. In Jesus' name, amen.